everyone. We greet you again in the new episode of Across the Pond podcast, where we, Povilas and Vytautas, one in Chicago, USA, and another in Vilnius, Lithuania, join across the Atlantic to discuss global and American political life. Today we meet on the eve of US midterm elections, and there is no other way it will be our topic. Hello, Povilas.
Hello, Vytautas. How are you?
Very fine. Povilas, Americans know it, but others probably not. Could you describe for those listening in Europe what is the midterm elections?
Well, the United States has elections every 2 years. Every 4 years, we elect the president, as we did in 2020. And now we have midterm elections, federal and state. At the federal level, we elect all members of the House of Representatives and 1/3 of the Senate. House of Representatives serve 2 years. Senators who are elected serve 6 years. So we basically have a new Congress after this election. On state level, each state, there are 50 states, each state has its own elections and its own procedures. Many states have election of their governors this year, which is very important. And the issues are a little different in state elections as they are in the federal elections. So basically we have 2 elections, one federal and one state, same day, under same voting procedures.
So we will focus on the federal elections, okay, because of the nature of our show. And what are the key issues for the public this year?
According to Gallup poll and other polls, approximately 60% of the voters say that economy, that is inflation and economy, are the most important issue. The next most important issue is security, which covers crime and immigration. Those are the key issues right now that are most concerning to the electors. It's probably very important to note that before the elections, there are several serious surveys that were done indicating that over 70% of the people are not satisfied the direction that the country is going. Only 17% in the latest survey showed that people were satisfied with the way the country is developing the last 2 years.
I think we should get through those issues one by one, if you're okay with that. And the
Sure.
most important is economy, and that is inseparable from inflation. So what are the positions of Republicans and Democrats in US on those issues? Where do they stand?
First of all, what is amazing, Vytautas, is that the Democrat candidates do not speak about these issues. They're fairly silent. Why? Because they basically have no defense for the inflation and economic status. All is tied to Biden's administration. President Biden, for instance, came out a couple days ago and said that United States economy is great. It's one of the best in history, which is completely lie. He also said that when he took over 2 years ago from President Trump, the economy was in a recession. It was in a terrible state. In fact, the facts are absolutely the opposite. When President Biden took over 2 years ago, inflation rate was 1.4%. Now it's 8.2%. When President Biden took over, the economy was growing at 6.5% per year. This year, first 6 months, the economy did not grow. It was negative. Only third quarter, it grew a couple percent. In other words, the economy has gone down substantially since President Biden took over. Therefore, the Democrat candidates are trying to avoid anything to do with economic issues, with inflation or status of the economy. Especially the fact that the economy was hurt by President Biden's fight against the energy industry, fossil fuels, and the rest of the energy industry, which is the key industry in the United States, and which not only produces oil and gasoline and affects each person's driving habits in life. Gas, for instance, gas went up almost 50%, or at least 50%. Every person that fills up his car knows what inflation means. Every person that goes to a grocery store knows what happens. And this is a result of the fight against the industry, against energy industry, which was self-reliant 2 years ago and now depends on imports. It affects everything. It affects food prices. It affects agriculture. It affects approximately 3,000 products. They're all up because of the policy to destroy the energy department. The Democrats, instead of talking about the issues, are talking now, the latest is their fear that the democracy will be destroyed by these elections, which has nothing to do with the real issues that people are concerned.
I guess we can get back to that threat to democracy a bit later. Now just stick with the key issues for these elections, okay? So I would say with rare exceptions, economy and prices are the main issues everywhere during the election. With things being as they are in America now, I am not too surprised that they are there too. But another important issue, especially for women in America this year, is abortion, according to the polls. Supreme Court made it political issue again, I would say. What are the parties, where are the parties standing on this now, and how exactly is this shaping the election?
Well, the polls indicated back in June that abortion was important, especially for the Democrat candidates, because of the ruling, Supreme Court ruling, outlawing abortions on federal level. But the court did not outlaw abortions. It just said that abortion policy has to be set by the states. Each state has its own rules for abortion. There is no federal policy now for abortions. So as the women, especially the educated women, learned that the issue was improperly presented in June, the issue of abortions as a policy issue for debates has been reduced substantially. It's in the 4th or 5th level now compared to economy and security. Security has become a much bigger issue, and security is based on rise of crime and massive illegal immigration into the United States, which is really not covered in Europe, which we should discuss a bit.
So you can tell us more about the immigration issue, but can I ask additionally, for me, it seems from what you said that abortion should be more of a question on the state level if states are deciding, well, the stance and the legislature on that. Is it so important on the federal level or just the state level?
It is not important on federal level to speak of. As I say, Democrats are basically refusing to debate the Republicans on issues. Almost all the senators and many congressmen refuse to even go to debates. If they do have debates, they might have one debate instead of 3 or 4. Democrats do raise the issue of abortion. Republicans take the position that it's a state issue, and it is an important issue in some of the states, some of the government races where abortion is raised as an important issue.
Okay, next issues in line, as I understand, are migration and crime. You can choose which one seems the most important to you, or according to the polls that you've read. I guess that would be migration and the state, well, walls, security of the border.
Well, I think both of them could be generalized as an issue of security. Every person in the United States is concerned about his own security. And of course, we as a nation are concerned about national security. The national security in the last 2 years has been terribly damaged by the fact that we don't have a de facto, we don't have a border between Mexico and the United States, which is a very long border extending through several state territories. Europeans have ignored this issue, but in the last 2 years, since President Biden has taken over, close to 5 million people have crossed the border illegally. Approximately 4 million have been registered or arrested and let go by the border agencies. About close to 1 million have crossed illegally and are gone in the United States. Over 100 known terrorists, the terrorists on international lists have been arrested. Approximately 150 countries are represented in the illegal people that are crossing the border. Well over 800 people have died this year crossing the border, crossing the rivers. There's a massive inflow of drugs that are affecting all Americans, especially the young people. For instance, poison is being sent to Mexico. There it's reproduced into pills that are sold in the United States and brought in through the illegal borders. 300 people die per day from that poison. If you can imagine, 108,000 people died last 12 months from the poison that's brought in from Mexico that was originated in China. So this security issue, national security, is a real danger, not only to the families, but to the whole country and to democracy. Now, on the domestic, on the personal level, crime level has increased massively, especially in the Democrat-run big cities. And the Democrat Party does run most of the big cities, like New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, St. Louis, Washington, D.C., etc. And crime has increased geometrically. Every level of crime. And it has to do with the Democratic policies of changing the laws to allow criminals that are arrested walk free without putting up a bond. They're not jailed. Even very serious criminals are let go the same day they're back in the street committing crimes. Secondly, the Democrat Party was behind defunding the police. Police departments were all devastated in these major cities, not only by lack of funding, but by demoralization by the political party. As a result, we don't have enough policemen. The policemen have been handicapped. They cannot fight the crime. For instance, in Chicago, the police have to face approximately 150,000 organized criminals. They're organized in several gangs. And there's only a couple 20,000 or more policemen. And they're reduced by ranks by early retirements and quitting because police are dying in the streets. It is very dangerous. And what result is that a common person goes to the city. He's afraid to walk in the streets at night. He's afraid to live in the city. Massive crimes of every category, including robberies of stores, robberies of individuals, and taking away of cars during the day while people are driving in the city. Chicago, for instance, has lost over 1,000 cars that are stolen during the day by bandits, hooligans, that take over the drivers as they stop for lights. Murder rates, robbery rates, rape rates, all of them have increased, and people feel that. And there is a reaction from people who never were involved politically, but now feel that their personal and family security is at stake, and they're driving these people to vote.
I must admit that at least here in Central Europe, where Lithuania is, it is quite safe in public, and it is hard to imagine things that you are telling now. I know that similar things are happening in high immigration countries of Western Europe, in Scandinavia, France, Germany, but not here, and it's quite exotic in an ironic way.
You're lucky.
We are lucky, yeah, we are. But you mentioned passingly about the migration issues and how we in Europe are not familiar with it. Well, I would say that Europeans got to familiarize with the migration issue more than they wanted, because during the last decade, we in European Union had two migration crises. Since 2014, millions actually came illegally from Africa and Middle East, mostly Muslim people. And lately, last summer, there was another migration crisis near the eastern border of European Union, because many illegal migrants came to European Union through Poland and through our homeland, Lithuania. It's quite strange things to say, but the Belarusian dictator, Alexander Lukashenko, was deliberately bringing them by planes from Middle Eastern countries, and then like running them through the forest, through the woods, to European Union countries. And this was solved also. And all of that changes European Union border policies, but that's taking effect very slowly and very with high difficulties, because mostly of ideological reasons of the mainstream leftist stance that there can be no borders, that borders are like yesterday thing. And this year we have another migration wave from Ukraine, but this one is real. It's real refugees that are coming, and it is of the whole other nature, more of a logistic challenge, but not ideological one. But getting back to the US elections that we are talking about today, I must ask who are the favorites to take the House and who are the favorites to take the Senate?
Well, before you ask if we go into that, I want to raise one little fact about the borders. United States does not have a wall between, or real border between Mexico and the United States. Lithuania, like Hungary and Poland, has developed a wall which has reduced illegal immigration. Ukrainian immigration is legal, so there's a big difference. United States has the policy of allowing 1 million people to immigrate legally, but we're talking about illegal. Now, as far as the favorites, I'm not an expert in that. The experts are suggesting that Republicans should win control of the House of Representatives and possibly the Senate. I would rather reserve my opinions. We'll see what happens after the votes are counted. But it does appear that Republicans will win the House and may win the Senate. If the Republicans win the Senate and the House, they will not be able to change President Biden's policies, but they will be able to at least stop some of it.
As far as I understand, the fight for the control of the Senate goes down to few, maybe 5 states. where, well, winners are uncertain. Which are those, and what are the situation there?
Well, I think the key states are Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Arizona. Uh, each in each case, the current poll results show that the candidates are tied or very close together. So the question will be, who turns out more votes, the Republicans or Democrats? Who turns out the voters? At midterms, normally less people vote than during the elections when there is a presidential election. So the question is, who will stimulate their own party people to come out to vote? As of now, it appears that Republicans are more enthusiastic and are more willing to come out to vote, which would be good for the Republican Party. But the results are very tight, and of course, it will depend on how the votes are counted.
And about counting the votes, yesterday I think President Biden publicly said that vote count will take a long time after the election. And how does that sound in the context of previous elections and the doubts about the presidential race being stolen? You know, we remember the slogans about "Stop the Steal." And I've seen the polls that at least Republicans, I guess more than a half of the Republicans are uncertain if their vote will be, well, fairly counted. So what is the situation, and is Biden just pouring oil into the fire?
Yes, I think President Biden comes out each day with a statement about the elections or about the economy or about the border security or whatever. And it's notorious because every time he comes out, it's no longer an exaggeration. He simply lies. And now, the latest, for instance, the closing statement, as he said a couple of days ago, was that these elections, democracy is at stake. And also, he mentioned that not to worry about the count election day because the results will be counted for a long time. Of course, he was referring to mail votes that come in, and sometimes, especially in states like Pennsylvania, take days and maybe weeks to count for various reasons, which is really ridiculous. I mean, the results should be known on the day of election. He's kind of pacifying his voters not to panic during election day if the results look bad, which is kind of implying that there will be wins in recounting or counting the votes, which is really not an issue that a president should be addressing. As far as his arguments about democracy being at stake, it's a bold lie, because when is democracy in danger? Democracy is in danger when voters, when citizens are not able to vote and express their vote. The fact is that this midterm election is having a historic record of voters. Voters' numbers have increased more than any midterm election in history. So to say that democracy is in danger when more people are voting is not only misguided, but it's basically a lie.
That is a very interesting take. So Biden says that democracy is at stake, and I understand that this is a political rhetoric to mobilize his voters or else. But on the other hand, it still seems like not just another regular elections. There is a certain tension in the air, if I could say. So how important are these elections in your opinion?
I think they're extremely important. And I think that what President Biden talks about democracy being in danger, he is talking about Democratic Party control being in danger. He's equating party control to democracy, which is wrong, not only historically, but politically and honestly. Now, the Democrat Party right now has total control of the federal government. It has the presidency. It's got total control of Congress, both House of Representatives and the Senate, because even though it's split 50-50 in the Senate, the vice president, that is Harris, is able to break tie votes, and therefore Democrats have control of the Senate. They also control the hundreds of government agencies, and the Democratic Party has turned those agencies into Democratic agencies. They're working for the Democratic Party and not for the country. And that is quite apparent in all the basic policy decisions. Why is that happening? The reason it's happening is the Democratic Party in the last 2 years has been taken over by a minority. About a third of the party is radical left. And because their votes are needed in Congress to pass any legislation for the Democrats, the rest of the Democrats follow the orders from the extreme left. As a result, American system is being destroyed. They're anti-American Constitution, they're anti-capitalist government, they're anti the economy. Therefore, the country is in serious danger by having one party control. And when the president talks about loss of democracy, he's talking about Democrats losing control of one party rule.
Povilas, thank you for your insights. To me, everything became clearer during this episode, and I hope it did so for those listening to us too. I wish everyone a fair election tomorrow, and I guess we'll be able to discuss the results.
The election will be Tuesday, 2 days from today.
Okay, good luck.
Thank you.